This video is brought to you by Squarespace. If you need a website or domain, check out squarespace.com. Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's video. If you're like most people starting out in a new hobby, the learning curve is steep. Have you ever taken a photo you thought was going to be amazing, but when you get home it was meh? The problem is you don't know what you don't know. Why don't my photos look like those I see on social media? Sometimes it's easy to figure out what's wrong, but sometimes it's not so obvious. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you the beginner mistakes that aren't obvious and that can speed up your learning curve to help you take amazing photos. My name is Simon D'Entremont and I'm a professional nature and wildlife photographer living in Eastern Canada. I make weekly videos giving you photo tips or taking you behind the scenes for nature photography. Subscribe if you want to see more. Okay, let's get into some lessons I learned as a professional photographer that were not obvious to me and took me years of struggling to learn a better way. My first tip is to not confuse an amazing scene with a good photo opportunity. Now, you must be thinking, that's a weird thing to say. If it's amazing, it has to be a great opportunity for a great photo, right? No. Let's say you're a landlubber, you live in the mountains. The first time you visit the ocean, you stand at the edge of the cliff face, wind in your hair, the sound of crashing waves, the smell of the ocean, and you look out at the amazing expanse. You feel alive and dazzled by the beauty, and you say to yourself, I need to capture this moment. You raise the camera and click. Congratulations, you've taken a photo of two blue rectangles separated by a line. This is a photo of nothing. No subject, no scale, no wind in your hair, and no smell of the ocean. A photo doesn't have all the senses to play with. You need to add enough visual experience in 2 dimensions to make up for the lack of all the other senses. A photo needs a subject, for example. It also needs scale if the size of something is what you're trying to show. For example, my brother recently told me that a tree had been uprooted at his cottage during a storm and had taken up a huge dirt footprint with it. He showed me a picture on his phone, and my reaction was, meh. Then he showed me a photo with a person with it. It makes a huge difference. A good photo also needs visual structure, either lines or patterns or something. When I had this amazing sunrise one morning, I knew a photo of just the sun over the water wasn't going to cut it. I found this neat pattern in the sand and put that in the foreground. By the way, this pattern was like 25 centimeters or 10 inches big at the most. By getting close, you can exaggerate it. Make that the subject of the photo and the sunrise the background. And finally, photos may remove the emotional experience of the scene, like standing on the edge of a cliff. You need to add that back into your photo through a story, a feeling, or beauty that delights not just the eye, but the soul. The next big mistake beginners make, and I did too, was to try to always fix exposure in post-processing rather than getting it right in the field. Now you may be saying, well, the light is the light. Well, maybe it is, but there are things that you can do about it. First, people take photos indoors where the light is poor and blame the conditions for crappy photos. You either got a lifeless dark photo that needed to be fixed in processing, or used a flash for the old surprise face look. Bring your subject over to a window instead. You not only get beautiful light on your subject for a cleaner look, you also get a nice side light for great shadows that look beautiful on faces. If you're shooting skateboarders or bikers in a parking lot, bring them close to the edge where some natural light is spilling in. For wildlife, rather than looking in the depths of the dark forest, skirt the edges of the trees so some light will spill in on your subject. Or if your subject is backlit, go around your subject to the other side to get them lit from the front. The light may be the light, but you can change the variables so that the light is serving your needs, not you being a slave to it and its limitations. I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. I built my own website using Squarespace and it was a breeze. A website is just a great way to have a professional place online where you can show off your work, your service, or your personal brand. Social media are often showing you or your work in short clips or photos, and sometimes makes it difficult to monetize, as they may not want links to external sites. A website is a permanent home for you and your work and your brand, presented in galleries or on pages designed by you that show them off at their best. There are lots of useful templates, including ones for specific genres like photography, which is mine, Or if you're more daring and artistic, you can go outside the templates using the new AI feature called Squarespace Blueprint to help you personally curate your own build. It's also a great way to monetize your work by setting up an online store so you can take payments by credit card or PayPal from all over the world. And now with a new added feature of buy now and pay later with ClearPay and Afterpay. Go to squarespace.com to sign up for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Simon for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Beginner mistake number 3 is letting the background destroy your photo. This is one wildlife photographers like me do in abundance. We're so happy to get a photo of a subject that we don't worry about the background. Then we look at our photo on a computer and it's a jumbled mess. Remember, the background usually has more pixels in the image than the subject. Now we can't always control the background, but when we can, moving sideways is a game changer. It can make a photo from this to this. Busy backgrounds, stuff sticking out of people's heads, and bright distractions that draw the eye away from the subject are all culprits. Now when these do happen, moving is a good option, but if it isn't, try using a thinner depth of field to make the background so blurry you can't see it. This is actually a telephone pole in the background, but it's so blurry you can't identify it. Another option is a tighter field of view. Make objects in your background disappear by zooming in enough so that you break up its structure. By the way, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, as I often include tips with my posts, and sign up for my email list to download my guide for shooting backlit for free. Link below. My next beginner mistake is trying to capture everything. I see this all the time with people trying to get it all in the photo. There are 2 problems with this technique. One, you end up with too many subjects. It's okay to have multiple subjects in some photos, but there needs to be some simplicity or story that makes those subjects have their place. Now sometimes you can photograph a group like this band, as it's a great way to capture the story of the scene. But the reality is that picking out smaller scenes and musicians are better photos visually. There's more room for innovation and artistry there. The lesson, capture the whole scene for mementos, but explore the artistic opportunities in the smaller scenes and vignettes. A hybrid trick is to have one subject in focus and the accompanying elements out of focus in the background. A bit of both, but with a clear subject. A win-win. Or with a really long lens, zoom in on small sections that are interesting in the scene, for example, these wildlife photos of mine. One problem I see all the time in beginners is shooting too quickly. They take photos immediately when they see something. But if you watch more experienced photographers, one thing you'll notice is they sit there and wait for a bit, observing. Better photographers will wait for better light, wait for a better subject position, and wait for a better moment. Now this could be either anticipation or patience. Anticipation is a skill I see in all action photographers. Sports, auto, wildlife, or anything else that moves. When you arrive at a new area, the first thing they do is watch. Where are the subjects coming into the scene? Where are they going? What's the direction of movement? Where are they crossing the best background, which you should include? Where are they crossing the worst background, which you should avoid? Then they position themselves to get the best angle and the best background. A sports photographer wants a great angle of the finish line for the 100 meters. But the best photo includes the Olympic rings in the background. These are not random locations or shooting angles. This photo of a mallard of mine was at a duck pond where I watched ducks going back and forth between 2 ponds. The background was mostly white snow, a bit boring, but there was a spot with some dead grasses that the ducks would fly through. That's the spot I focused on. And voila! By taking plenty of shots, I got the head shadow on the wing too. The other reason for patience is waiting for optimal conditions or peak action. For landscape photographers, it's waiting for better light. Or this photo of mine from Botswana, waiting for the sleeping leopard to rise and yawn. Or these peak action sports photos. A bit of patience goes a long way at making your photos stand out. On top of a great subject, make the viewer feel like they're witnessing a unique moment in time. That will make your photo much more special. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like so YouTube will show it to even more photographers looking to improve their craft. And I hope that you can use these tips the very next time you go out to get your own unique and amazing photos. I know you can do it.